So with that, we'll go ahead and start recording. Thank you, John. Good afternoon. Welcome to Abundance Athens. This is the action group for agriculture focused on increasing fresh food access for East Side residents. Just to give you a really brief history of that for people that are new to the conversation. It has been clear from Athens Wellbeing Project and other data that there's a disproportionate lack of access to fresh food for East Side residents. And so this group began convening several months ago to address that need and have some good success measures and progress points on that account. When COVID hit, we opted to acknowledge the need for kind of expanding our focus to include access to food, period, for all residents of Athens Clarke County. So we kind of expanded out and shifted the focus of this particular group in March, April, as you would expect of last year, and had the pleasure of working with Athens Eats Together and other partners to develop programming that was able to meet the community's most urgent needs for food. So that's a bit of history. Just looking around the gallery wall here before we move into the agenda, if anyone who's new to this conversation who would like to introduce themselves, I'll go ahead and ask Commissioner Myers, who is not new to Envision, but is new to this particular space, to introduce herself.
I'm just getting myself on gallery so I can see the people who are actually on here. Oh, there's a lot of people. Okay, well, I'm just introducing myself. I was talking to Erin a little while ago, a couple of weeks ago, and she said, oh, you need to come to the Abundance meeting. And I think she was mentioning this because I was talking about the desire, the need to have a farmer's market on the East Side. And had been talking a little bit about that to people when I'd been campaigning, and she said, you need to come in here. Plus, clearly, as you guys probably know, there's been a lot of discussion about Athens Eats and the funding of nonprofits. And so I'm, trying to make connections myself as a new commissioner and learn different things. So I'm glad to be here with people who are working on this. So I think that's it. I spent my career, just a little background, at Athens Tech. So I worked at Athens Tech for 27 years and have been retired. And this is my new gig as commissioner. So I don't just spend my whole time riding bikes and walking in the woods. Anyway, glad to be here.
Thanks so much for joining us, Commissioner. Who else is new to this conversation? If we could ask you to introduce yourself to the group.
I'm new to the conversation. Hi, everyone. I'm Tanya Bolata, and I'm with the Food Bank of Northeast Georgia Program Manager.
Yeah. Tanya, now I know you. We go way back. It's great to see you again.
Yes, you too.
Thanks for your work.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Catherine, how about you?
I did attend the last meeting, but I'm the community health worker at St. Mary's.
Great. Yeah, I just wanted to welcome you back.
Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah, you're relatively new, and we're really glad you're in that position.
Thank you. Right. I love it so far. I'm glad to be here.
Wonderful. And Dr. Shannon, I know you were just able to kind of rejoin us when we changed the date. So would love to just ask you to introduce yourself and what you do related to this.
Sure. So my name is Jerry Shannon. I am faculty member at UGA, primarily in the Department of Geography, and have done various kinds of projects in the past looking at food availability, food access in Athens and beyond. And so I'm just part of the conversation and thinking through, like, how do we create tools that help people navigate available resources. I've done some research on SNAP specifically, and particularly SNAP retailers, and thinking about access to factors that influence access to that program. So I'm happy to be part of this conversation, thinking about how that matters here locally.
Great, thank you. Anybody else? I don't want to miss anyone. Amanda Bolin.
Hi everyone, I'm the communications fellow at Envision. So I sort of run social media and I write the newsletter and stuff. So I'm very happy to be here. Super exciting stuff going on.
All right, anybody else? All right. So let's dive in. John, I think you're next to talk with Meg about the SNAP outreach.
Yeah. Hey, everyone. So Meg Bramlett with AWP, and I see Harrison on the call with AWP as well. The three of us have been working with a student group from the New Media Institute. I think we've talked about this at a previous call, but to fill everyone in, New Media Institute has a capstone course where students work to provide a digital solution for some kind of problem, issue, whether it's for a for-profit, a nonprofit, or just addressing a community need. We've been working on SNAP outreach with them, so they developed a SNAP flyer as a part of that project. They're doing working on some other things with them as well, but as part of that project, they developed a SNAP flyer that was given over to Athens Eats Together. And Meg, maybe you can provide an update, but I believe they've been going in all of the Athens Eats Together food bags for the last 2 weeks now. Meg, do you have an update?
Yeah. So I don't want to steal your thunder. Cut me off if you were going to say this. So we discovered something surprising. I think we talked about this at the last meeting. But one thing that we were surprised to find when we were looking at the Athens Eats data was that a lot of people who qualified for SNAP who weren't receiving SNAP didn't know whether or not they qualified. They said that's why they weren't getting it. Not that they didn't qualify or didn't want to. They were given a number of options, but they just didn't know. So we took this opportunity to sort of pull together some basic information with the overarching idea that we would just sort of help people try and figure out whether or not they were eligible for SNAP or not. So we found that sort of gap. I think 25% of Athens Eats recipients said they didn't know if they were eligible, which was pretty substantial. So yeah, as soon as it was ready, we sent it over there and they've printed them out and they've been putting one of these eligibility flyers in every food package that goes out.
Awesome. Thanks, Meg, for that update. And I'm pulling it up right now so I can share screen just to give everyone an idea of what it looks like. Give me just a second.
And John, while you're doing that, just to give a little bit of history here, I wanted to note Mary Barrett, you're on the call today. She has one of the most difficult jobs in Athens as the director of DFAC. So thanks for the work that you do. And we've been working with Mary Barrett and the DFAC's team for some time to just try to understand any barriers that might exist. And her office has been a really great partner, and they actually helped connect us to the state level outreach representative. And Mary Barrett, just I think you're updated on this, but I know that Thomas and the neighborhood leaders have connected to potentially become outreach partners kind of as at that state level, which would hopefully also help expedite applications, with the goal being to increase access, but also to provide extra support to the DFAC's office, like understanding that the numbers of people needing service far outpace the positions available. So just wanted to note that, and thank you, Mary Barrett, for your role in this and leadership. And Denise Lark has also been a key contact person from DFACs and is kind of our fact checker because she works directly in the OFI Office of Family Independence.
Awesome. And yes, thank you to both of you, Mary Barrett, and I don't think Denise is on the call today, but to both of you for the work you do. Here's the flyer that the students put together. This was, reviewed in conjunction with a number of community partners, which are included at the bottom. And I know that Athens Eats Together was glad to have these and start including them in their bags. So I can send this flyer out with the meeting minutes after the meeting. And on that note, I think that's all of the update that I have.
One thing I did want to mention, if anybody uses the flyer, and we make a note of it at the bottom, but I just want to reiterate that there are the eligibility sort of thresholds based on household at the bottom. If somebody is like a little bit over. The person who reviewed it at DFACS said that you should still consider applying or reaching out. So there are some cases, and maybe Mary Barrett, you can hopefully confirm that I'm explaining this correctly, but there are some cases where somebody maybe might not initially look like they qualify, but if they're close, a little bit over, they might still. So you're encouraged to still reach out. Am I saying that correctly?
Yeah, so that's kind of the problem. I shouldn't say problem, but why it's better for people to apply, because when individuals go in to complete the gateway application, one question leads to another question that leads to another question, push them over that threshold. So if people are struggling, then they should apply. It will ask for more information. So yes, I mean, there's so many different circumstances that it's hard to say, well, this is definitely going to guarantee you. But if individuals do need the assistance, we do encourage them to go ahead and apply.
Thank you.
That's a great point, Meg. And just to confirm, because I didn't, believe it or not, I didn't memorize the flyer in the moment that it was just brought up. Are we saying that detail is not listed on the flyer? So it's something that connecting folks like ourselves will need to add to the conversation?
It is listed on the flyer. I just like to,
Okay.
I learn different ways. So to read it and to hear it, I think is
No, that's great. I appreciate it. I wanted to know if it was like a both and, or if you don't say something, people won't know. And I love the chat activity. And Mary Barrett, I'm so glad you were able to join us today to be able to answer these questions. And yes, after this meeting, we are happy to share this so that you can pass along as widely as possible. We did have a conversation regarding another key document, and though this is not specifically relevant to food insecurity, unfortunately, for people who experience poverty, when it rains, it pours, meaning people who don't have access to food are also likely to be challenged in terms of housing stability. So we also have kind of an explanatory document on the CDC moratorium. Also thanks to John and Meg. So we might want to go ahead and share that with this group too, just because I think the information is relevant. Related to both of these documents, I'm wondering if anyone on this call has access to a relatively quick turnaround Spanish translation. It's okay if the answer is no. I actually think that Laura, maybe with Co-op Extension, mentioned that they might have that capacity. So I will follow up with her. But I'm thinking that these are documents that it would be helpful to have them in Spanish as well. Yeah, okay, okay. I'm keeping up with the chat box here. Okay. Yes. Okay, great suggestions. Oh, okay. All right, so anything else about this particular flyer or follow up in that? Like we said, we'll send that out. John specifically, thank you, John. We'll send this out with the notes. And thanks again to Meg, Harrison, and John, as well as the New Media Institute group and DFACS for their guidance in this along the way. So next, moving into updates from local markets. I see we have Ellie from Athens Land Trust representing West Broad, and the other Sherry Anderson, or the original Sherry Anderson, depending on how you want to describe it, representing Marigold Market. And then I don't see Sarah nor Monica, but they did send in updates from Athens Farmers Market. So Sherry, I'll go ahead and call on you if you're comfortable. Would love to hear, how are things going with Marigold Market, start date, and anything else you want to share.
Okay. First off, we've got our start date as May 1st. And And then we're going to have our grand opening the following week on May 8th, which would traditionally be the Marigold Festival. But they're not doing that this year. They're only doing that online. Also, let's see, we got our cold storage facility built. So that's exciting. That's ready to take in. We've got the shelves, everything's ready to go. So we're excited to start incorporating the food hub into our project and what's going on here. This Saturday, we are going to be painting the building, and we've got our vendor orientation this weekend. And then as far as SNAP benefits, we're kind of in a bottleneck. I've been contacting the USDA over and over, and I've been told who give me contact information for him, and I haven't heard anything from him, and it's been a month, a little more than a month. So I'm a little concerned about that we won't be SNAP ready for this season. Ideally we want to be, but I'm not sure at this point that we're going to be able to. But that is our goal. And then, yeah, as far as like help, we could use some help with getting the word out on SNAP benefits. So I was glad to see that John had that flyer to share, because we'll definitely have that available. And then also if we could get some help with volunteers and interns for the market season, that's the other thing we're going to need some help with.
Sherry, do you have a written description to kind of articulate the volunteer opportunities that you have?
I'm working with Laura on that this week, so I can, I'll have that ready by this weekend.
Yeah. I see some volunteer manager people on the call today. So I'm guessing, Mark, would there be space for you to share that via 211 volunteer opportunities, and then Josh as well?
We definitely can. And I'm sure
Yeah.
Josh can. Not speak for him, but.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
Sherry, I'd say I'd be happy to work with you to get the opportunities up on a platform that helps you manage those folks, so we can connect offline about that.
Okay. Sounds good.
Can I ask?
Also,
I am connected to the College of Public Health internship coordinator. Do you have any sort of positions that you would need an intern for that are public health related, even sort of peripherally?
I can work on that too.
If you don't,
like I said,
fine.
I don't have it today. I don't have the list today, but I will get it.
Okay. Yeah. Just keep it in mind. Our interns don't want to get coffee and make copies. So I'm always looking for good opportunities for them to have meaningful experiences. So that's great.
Yeah.
Yes, very hands-on. And along that same line, I'd like to brag on the capstone students that we're having help us with our branding project, marketing and branding project. And they've created a market brand book for us, and it's amazing. And they're helping us with some other things. So that's been a real plus for the market for this season.
And Sherry, what program is that capstone team with?
Sustainability.
Fantastic. I'm a big fan of that sustainability group. Yeah, they send us fantastic people. So Sherry, if you're noting the chat box is pretty busy, meaning when you have a volunteer position description or opportunity that you're comfortable sharing, we can include that and follow up to the whole group, or you can just reply all to when John, feel free to share, because I'm seeing it from Dr. Shannon to neighborhood leaders, to UGA folks. Folks are very interested in sharing the opportunity.
That's very helpful. I appreciate that, everyone. And
also, now is a great time to note, before we move on to Ellie in just a moment, that if you receive the Envision Athens newsletter, I hope you do. If you don't, please let us know, and we would love to add you to our list. Every month has a theme that focuses on a particular domain of Envision Athens. So this month, the newsletter just was released this morning, thanks to Amanda. The theme this month is sustainability and environment. Next month, I believe it will be agriculture, and I think that's very timely. I would love to share any updates or opportunities that you have in that. So also just keep that in mind, and if there's anything you want us to include, either in our social channels or newsletter, please send that my way.
Absolutely.
I'm so excited. My computer just fell over. The passion. Yeah,
Thanks, everyone.
Sherry, anything else from you before we move on?
Nope. I just appreciate everyone's willingness to help out.
And then can you remind us one more time of the start date for Marigold Market and the days and times?
Yeah, so it's Saturdays starting May 1st from 10 to 2. And our official grand opening will be May 8th, 10 to 2.
May 8th.
But we'll,
And if you have a like a flyer or a graphic with that, I think you might have already shared that, but just feel free to kind of keep that coming and we'll keep plugging it through our social channels.
Okay.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you, Sherry. So proud of you guys in Winterville. I really don't know how you did it, but I'm grateful and impressed. Ellie, another great market. West Broad, what's going on?
Hey guys, sorry, excuse my voice. The pollen has been getting the best of me lately. So we have been up and running since the third weekend in January with our online market, as most of you already know, and it's going great. We have also just announced our in-person market dates for this year. We are doing it a little bit differently than we have in the past, just with continuing concerns about being able to offer, safely, just with, especially the way the West Broad market is, it's very much like a gathering place. It's not just necessarily people come through to shop. People want to hang out and meet lunch, and we usually have performances and, speakers and all that sort of stuff. And that's what people want to have. And we want to be able to do that stuff. So with that in mind, we are essentially going to be doing one in-person market a month beginning May 1st. So May 1st will be our May Day celebration. June 19th will be our Juneteenth celebration market. 8-4 are kind of back to school. We will be taking July off because it's too hot and nobody wants to do anything in July outside. So August 4th will be back to school. October 16th, Fall Festival. November 20th, Thanksgiving market, and we'll have our traditional holiday markets the first 2 weekends in December. And I believe our kind of flyer for those in-person market dates should be done sometime this week. So we'll definitely share that with y'all. And then outside of the in-person, online will be happening every Saturday. The in-person will be at the Athens Housing Authority and in the new West Broad Garden. So at the same place we do our online pickup. The in-person will run from 11 to 2 on those Saturdays when we do have it. And we are currently still accepting vendor applications. We are going to be limiting the amount of vendors just because we do still feel like we do have to socially distance everybody. We can't pack tent on top of tent on top of tent. So we will, it is, first come, first serve to get a space to be a vendor. And then that's pretty much what's going on over there right now, but we're excited. We're really excited to get back to in-person market because while the online, is great for a lot of our vendors, we know a lot of people do miss the ability to get out there and tell people about their product face to face. So we are excited to get back to that. And again, I will share the list of those dates with y'all so that if, people want or need to know, y'all can have it.
And thank you, Ellie. I think this is an area where this convening can be really helpful. So 2 examples. One, Sherry mentioned having a challenge in Winterville connecting to the USDA rep to kind of get momentum on being able to receive SNAP. Ellie, do you know of a contact or if you all have a relationship there that might help expedite their opportunity?
Yes. So I honestly, I've only been doing this for about a year. All of that stuff was done way before I started working professionally with West Broad. But I have been in contact with people at USDA through about, re-enrolling for our program, making sure we were up to date. And I'm more than happy to share that contact. I'm not 100% sure that's who she would need to talk to, but maybe that person would know who she needs to talk to.
Sure. Yeah.
So yeah, that's no problem whatsoever.
I really appreciate it. And Sherry, I'll ask Sarah and Monica the same question from Farmers Market. My thought is people who have done this before might have some insight into how to maneuver and maybe even make some gains in time, which I know sounds like you want to do.
Yeah, I know that our caseworker, his name is Bobby Larson, but that's all I've got is his name.
Gotcha.
And I wasn't sure why they couldn't share his contact information. That was odd. I thought since he's my caseworker, so.
That is interesting. And then Ellie, connected to your plans to open, and Sherry, I'm guessing you guys have figured some things out as well. But since the Athens Farmers Market has been doing this for a little while, I know that they came up with a really solid plan to manage, how to allow people to do some socializing, but also how to encourage them to kind of keep moving. So I know Sarah would be happy to share her strategies with you guys if that would be helpful to you.
Absolutely.
And then since Athens Farmers Market is not able to join us, they did send an update, and related to SNAP doubling, they are working with some UGA service learning classes to expand their SNAP doubling outreach efforts. And so they have flyers out in various locations such as Sparrow's Nest, Mercy Health Center. And then I see, Patrick and I think Gwen is on the call. I'm guessing they might also be willing to share information about SNAP doubling with neighbors. Okay, any other thoughts or questions about markets? And just to clarify, correct me if I'm wrong, but the status of our current markets is the Marigold market, which is relatively new, so it's celebrating its second season, is working to become positioned to accept SNAP benefits. West Broad Market and Athens Farmers Market accept SNAP benefits and can double those benefits. Daniel Epting.
Hey, Erin, I was just going to add, yeah, there's 3 places in Athens that will double. So it's Athens Farmers Market, the West Broad Farmers Market, and Daily Co-op. Yeah, so those are the 3 places. Yeah.
Yes, that one slipped my mind. Thank you so much. I see Daniel Epting raise his hand, and then Commissioner.
Yeah. So sorry if y'all say anything. I was a little late on the call. That said, does anyone? Thanks for the updates. But has anybody got a direct ask or a need that from the people on this call for any support? I mean, it's great to hear about what's happening, but what things? And if I missed that, I apologize and don't go backwards.
Yeah, Daniel, I think more of that is to come. Some key needs that have been mentioned is one, support connecting to USDA to expedite the application for the Winterville market to be able to accept SNAP benefits. And so we discussed that, as well as the need for volunteers at the Winterville market, Marigold market. So that description and those opportunities will be going out in the follow-up. And then as any of these markets share, their opening information or engagement opportunity, the list for abundance is open for a reason. Feel free to reply all with your graphics and flyers so we can share and support your good work. So that's it so far. Great question. And there's more to come on that. Commissioner Myers.
This is, a totally post-COVID question here, but if there's anyone in here who could share any thoughts with me, either privately afterwards about the possibility or the need for, or a farmer's market on the east side, like at Southeast Clark Park, how that would fit in, who the best person to talk to would be. If this is something a lot of people on the east side are interested in, I have a lot of people on a newsletter, and I think I could pull people together to work on something. But I'd like to, if there are any resources here that I would get together to have those people talk to, I'd appreciate that. I did talk very briefly with Ken Kilpatrick with leisure services about the possibility of doing something at Southeast Clark, and he's open to accepting a proposal on that. So if all of you know the right people, or are the right people, please let me know, maybe in the chat, or reach out to me otherwise.
Mm-hmm. Commissioner, that's a great point. What I would like to do, if it's okay, is I have one more update to share that kind of relates to these success measures, and then I'm going to circle us back to that so we can spend a little bit more time on it.
Okay.
That's a great point. So next on the agenda is the PharmRx program. If you're not familiar with that, that stands for Food as Real Medicine Prescription, which is a program that occurs in other places across the country. Athens Farmers Market worked with UGA, Co-op Extension, and other partners to bring that program to Athens. And one of the success measures for this group is to sustain and continue to build capacity in order to offer literal prescriptions that a participant can redeem at farmers markets for fresh produce. So it's a lovely concept, and it does work. The retention rate for Athens is much stronger, higher than many programs like it across the country. So a quick update from the PharmRx program here is that it is fully funded and expanding to increase their enrollment by a factor of 5, from 20 families to now 100 or more families. The healthcare partner is Mercy Health, and they are working to select participants. And so in order to be eligible for participation, a potential participant has to meet certain health criteria and have specific chronic conditions. And so the health partner is critical there. They do have information, or they will have information in English and Spanish. That's how I knew about the Co-op Extension translation, is that's who translated their flyer. So that information will be available. I just wanted to provide that update. Any questions about PharmRx before we move on?
I have a question, Aaron, about that.
Okay, so.
So my question about that, about for Mercy specifically as a health partner, does that mean someone has to be eligible for Mercy services to also be eligible for this program? I know you have to be uninsured. I believe you have to be uninsured still to be a Mercy patient. Therefore, you need to be uninsured to be a recipient of this as well. But I don't know. Maybe it's not that way. I'm just curious before I promote it.
That's a great point. And it may be that in reality, it's not a requirement, but practically, if that's the partner, then they're not going to find participants that they're not serving.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
So that might mean there could be a gap. So let's follow up via email after this with Sarah to find an answer to that question. That's a great question.
Sounds great. Thanks.
Okay. So lots of great updates. I know we have a few more community announcements at the end, so I do want to make and leave time for those announcements. But kind of connected to Commissioner Meyer's question and helping us zoom out for a moment, we've discussed for the past few months the efficacy and importance of Athens Eats Together, and how that program specifically made food accessible by having a delivery option that really no other ongoing food provision pre-COVID or post Athens Eats Together is planning to provide so far. So as that program sunsets this month, I just wanted to open up our conversation to what sense you may have, especially looking at Mark from 211, Harrison and John, and all of your contacts in the community, Daniel Epting as a key partner in Athens Eats Together, Patrick and Gwen as neighborhood leaders. I would just love to kind of invite an open-ended conversation asking the question, as Athens Eats Together sunsets this month, do we have any concrete idea what gaps in food security might remain, and how can we work together to address those gaps?
I have related point to that is, this is Andy with Campus Kitchen, and so far I've just received one inquiry of someone who was Michael Bien with the homeless shelter, and Advantage Behavioral reached out, just saying, he had been receiving food from Athens Eats for about 10 clients and was looking to fill that gap. And so I know that that's just one, anecdote, but I know that those inquiries are starting to happen. And so coming up with some sort of centralized way, whether it's through the Give Pulse calendar, sharing of all the different distributions, or some sort of centralized way that will help manage some of these inquiries as they start to come in a way that makes sense and makes sure that the most people can get served. So we were able to fill that gap because it was fairly small just in that one instance. But I know that, my organization and other organizations only have so much capacity to answer those questions, and then also to be able to fill those gaps. So it's just my 2 cents on that.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate it. Patrick, I would love to hear from you if you're in a good spot to give any feedback just based on your experience on the ground as a neighborhood leader and how this program has worked and what you might see coming on the horizon.
Well, so we've actually reached out or had started communications with Concrete Jungle and Campus Kitchen. And then also we started just kind of trying to think outside the box of how can we keep things going when it pertains to the residents that we assist with food. And so I've actually kind of joined the partnership with Mount Olive, who's doing food distribution, and kind of join in with them to kind of cover the residents that I have, but then also using the Give Pulse website just to kind of figure out how can we kind of fill in those gaps. The conversation that we had was trying to figure out, and kind of along the lines of what Andy was saying, because the other organizations, they don't have the actual supplies to cover a large amount on a regular basis. So what we were planning on doing, and we were talking about on our neighborhood leader call with Terrence, was just trying to rotate organizations that we deal with that kind of help out on a smaller capacity. And so we may get something from Concrete Jungle on Tuesday of this week, and next week we may get something from another organization, just kind of rotating it that way. So we're still kind of covering that gap, because at the end of the day, regardless of whether they in the program or not, there's still people that need food. And unfortunate part is they didn't extend it, but we still got to figure something out, because we're here to serve, and we got to figure out how we can serve and how we can help those that are lacking when it comes to food. Even though there are some other areas that still that need assistance or help, but that's pretty much what we've been doing, just trying to figure out how we can kind of rotate it and have kind of a solid plan in place so that we can make sure that those that need food have access to food. And then also figuring out who can actually get the food themselves and who actually needs delivery.
I really appreciate that, Patrick. And that's incredibly insightful. And having spent some time in human services related to food provision and access, I don't believe that there's really any replacement for a program that can deliver food to the door of certain folks. For some people who relied on that and they're not able for whatever reason to leave home and go get food, no food pantry, though that is so useful. I'm not undermining the importance of that. So for some people who were relying on that door-to-door delivery, I don't know that we have an answer for those people unless there's interest in maybe working with faith-based partners and others to offer a service like that, maybe for people most in need. I think that's a little bit further down the line. I do wonder if there are thoughts and if any work has been done to look at, to what extent we have mapped food insecurity and lack of access in Athens, Clarke County, and overlay that with where food pantries are available. Mark is laughing, which makes me think that I literally just said something that he was about to share. So I'm gonna invite him.
Dr. Shannon made a map just like that for us not terribly long ago. It's remarkably similar. What would be very helpful, though, is combining our information. We're doing this with Josh. We appreciate their efforts with their extra person power at the university to get some super immediate updates, and we want to transpose that into our same conversation. We had looked at more of a regional level, but I think that if I'm not mistaken, Dr. Jerry, we could probably make it zip code level. If we could make zip codes available, we could maybe look at it a little tighter for neighborhoods.
Zip codes for pantries or zip codes for food insecurity?
I think the pantries both would be ideal, but
I mean, I think what I would have is tract level estimates of food insecurity that are going to be very fuzzy, right? They're not going to be up to date, accurate with COVID, but they'll give you a general sense. I think that plus pantry locations doing a like 15-minute drive up or around those is not terribly complicated.
Yeah, and I think what we have could serve as a template to get to that answer. And I think that something that came to mind when Patrick was talking, I don't think this is shareable information, not information I have, information that ACCA / the county would have on the individuals that registered that needed delivery, and how shareable that information, at what level is that information shareable? To what degree is that information? What I mean by that is, I don't need to know their names. I don't need to know where they live, but how many people were asking for delivery? Because then when you mentioned the possibility of a faith-based response to those individuals, if you have a number, I think you could get to a point of where when Daniel asks that question, what do you need? He can then say, oh, you need 300 people? I can do it. But when we're just talking about some people need food delivery, I don't think people are as apt to respond to that. And so similar to your question right now of can we map food insecurity versus food pantries, we want to know the answer because then we know what problem to tackle and it feels doable. It doesn't feel like this big monster.
I think
so that's my thoughts on that.
I think the stat that Eve shared with the commission, and I think we talked about it on the last abundance, was 52% of the families were getting it delivered, and that was roughly 2,600 people per week. So 52% of that, so 1,300 just north of that, at the time when they decided to take the remaining funds and split it up between agencies. So I understand that, from that commission meeting, there's some expression of a lack of understanding of why we need transportation fees covered in storage. But that's kind of how, food distribution happens. You have to make it, you have to store it, and then you have to take it to people. So that was brought to question. But I think about 52% is what Eve had expressed.
That's really helpful, Dan. And I'll say one last thing that came up on a conversation that a number of you were generous enough to give some time to just the other day. We're talking about the program, the pieces that Josh has and the pieces that we have from 211, and kind of where we're at is Josh and I know you guys are working on even a digest, which sounds really cool to ever so often send out those, push out to all of you those. I'm probably stealing your thunder if you're gonna announce this later, I'm certain. But what is like the right now, the next 2 weeks updates, which is great. At the same time, if someone needs something beyond food, they can always call 211, use 211. But if you just want to clear away all the brush and get to food, Josh has you. The piece that we had discussed, though, that is one of the biggest challenges is exactly what Patrick alluded to, is we can't real-time track supply. We just can't. The organizations have to do it themselves. So is there a participatory way to do that? How cumbersome is that? It'd be similar to coordinated entry with homeless service providers, knowing how many beds are generally available in a given area, knowing how much food is available. That would also require people signing up ahead of time, which most pantries don't necessarily do. So there's some different facets of challenge, but I think that a group like this could possibly, even maybe not to throw y'all into it, but Food Bank of Northeast Georgia could be a great coordinator of some kind of project like that on a certain degree of scale. So I'm just gonna put that out as a something.
And I had another thing, and it's kind of what you were saying, Mark, that kind of just made me think about a couple of things. Am I muted? Okay, okay. I wasn't sure I was muted or not. If you're talking about pantries and you're talking about, I guess in my mind, if a couple things, if ACCA, if they could actually contact, email, call, or whatever means they have of actually reaching out to those that need deliveries to let them know who their neighborhood leader is, would be great. But then also, if there's a way to be able to identify what food pantries are located in what zones, I think that would be great as well. And you can make those two connections. And then, like you were saying, really finding out how many people need what. I mean, I know how many people I deliver in my zone, but I know there's not everyone in my zone because ACCA also did distribution at the actual elementary school, which I hadn't had an opportunity to actually join in on. So that will be a different list of people, that were able to actually come up to the school. But it doesn't mean they will be able to come to actual food pantry because they stay in that the vicinity of the actual school. So I guess those three things kind of came to mind. What food pantries are located in what zones, and then if ACCA could let those know who receive deliveries, hey, this is your neighborhood leader. If you need any assistance in finding, locating, or possibly receiving a delivery outside of our program because it's ending, reach out to them. And then again try to figure out, like Mark was saying, how many people actually need deliveries and what zones are those deliveries being sent to, and then trying to reach out to your faith-based organizations that could probably partner with the neighborhood leaders or other volunteers to get that distribution going. Because I mean, there was a food need before COVID, but the need was more visible, after COVID hit and during the pandemic, and we're still kind of experiencing it now. I mean, I feel like it was just brought to light, and more people were added to that group of people that needed it before.
Patrick, those are really important points. I think we are really hitting on critical questions to answer as soon as possible. And related to your point, Patrick, Dr. Shannon just noted that it's possible to do a heat map of Athens Eats Together deliveries. And I can commit to following up just after this meeting to make connections in that conversation. I'm guessing that would include Jerry Shannon. Who else would want to be a part of that email thread? Maybe Mark, Josh. And so I think that is critical information, and not to overcomplicate it, but I think that if possible, we need to drill down even more deeply. For great reason, people who experience food security, if they have the opportunity to have the food delivered, why wouldn't they have it delivered, right? Like, more power to them. I think it's important that we make things as convenient as possible. I do think it's important to ask the question in terms of targeting of the people who receive door-to-door delivery, which people would not access food were it not for that delivery. So in other words, of those people, how many did it because it was convenient, and that's great, and then which people without that would literally maybe not have meals, or their children literally be going hungry. I don't know if we have access to that level of depth of insight, but I think that would be good too. Mark, did you have something? Okay.
I just think you're right.
Yeah. Okay. I know we're kind of starting to wind down on time and have a couple of other things to discuss. John and Harrison, do you all have anything to update just related to Backpack Project, PBJ, and your sense of the pulse of needs for food and how those needs are being met, or if they are?
Regarding folks that are experiencing homelessness, I think there's a number of food resources that are prepared meals that they're getting. Not a lot of my contacts I don't think we're using Athens Eats Together, so I can't speak to that. Harrison, maybe you had some clients that are homeless that have been using Athens Eats Together.
Not that I've heard of. So what TVP does in terms of food distributions is every Saturday we'll cook a bunch of meals, usually somewhere in the neighborhood of like 50 to 100, and we'll go out to a bunch of the encampments around town to distribute them. And you know, for those camps, it's generally enough, but since we don't hit all the camps, obviously there's huge gaps in service, and we only go out once a week for our homeless clients. So there's always going to be a gap there. I don't know of anyone who's using Athens Eats Together. So.
And my understanding with food needs there has been that a number of existing organizations and homeless service providers have been addressing food needs to that specific population.
Yeah,
the pandemic, and before and throughout even more so. I've seen a number of new organizations that have started doing food distributions as well. So Patrick, Patrick, go ahead.
Now I do recall or have seen a few of the Athens Eats Together containers, the emptying containers at some of the different sites. So they may not be being served directly, but they are receiving some of the some of the foods. You can't miss the containers. So I have seen some of the containers at different sites.
Do you know which camps those are at, if you can share?
Maybe we should have that conversation offline over email.
Yeah.
That's a great point. And that Epting branding is pretty strong, I must say. All right, I know we have a few other things to discuss. I don't want to forget Commissioner Myers' question and the point around one of our success measures. I don't know if you have your Envision Athens work plan handy, but I always keep mine close. I wouldn't expect that you do. One of the success measures that we've been pursuing, though it has become kind of less urgent with the pandemic, has been connect the need for fresh food with an entrepreneurial opportunity on Athens East Side, establishing a storefront or mobile market opportunity to increase both economic and nutrition opportunities. So that is a success measure that we had stated. And I think to some extent, the Marigold market, though that's not quite east, that's more north. It is something in terms of addressing part of the need for fresh food, in a part of town that is not the west side, but it still does not go to the extent that a market such as one at Southeast Clark Park might. I think for good reason, today's call focused a bit more on like the urgent matter of Athens Eats Together is ending. How do we determine needs and respond to those needs? So I commit to the follow-up for that. But while we have a couple minutes, and I think that this might be a great topic for our next meeting in May, Commissioner Myers, don't want to commit you to have to return, but if you're available, we would be happy to make that more a key agenda item and dig into that a little bit further. Before we open up to announcements, do you all have any thoughts on the interest in, appetite for, no pun intended, a market in that part of East Side?
I'm an East Side resident, and that would be an amazing location. My one question would be farmers in the area who are available to commit to a market, and how many farmers are in the Athens area that are still looking for a market. So that would be my question, is the kind of farmer demand side for folks to be able to come to another market in the area.
Great question, Daniel.
I also wonder if you got a good opportunity with Tractor Supply right nearby that sells a lot of that garden stuff, to get it started and see if you can get a corporate sponsor instead of on the public parking lot. Let's see if they would be interested in potentially hosting it, and engaging people with their store, as opposed to like Walmart where they sell groceries. It's not competing, so it just might be a partner in that to get it started. And then if it outgrows their parking lot, take it to the park.
It's a great thought. Thinking like an entrepreneur. That's an Epting right
Hey,
there.
We got to keep jobs, keep people working, keep money moving.
I appreciate it. And one other thought before we open to community announcements and any final updates is to include Rashi in the conversation, considering her farm to neighborhood programming. And, you know, in some ways she has already helped fulfill a part of the success measure related to establishing, you know, a mobile market. So she has her food truck, and the farm to neighborhood program was created to help mobilize fresh food. So I think she would, one, offer great insight and might be a critical conversation partner. I would love to just think about how we could support her efforts and locate this work, you know, in the optimum place. One last question before we start to close. Patrick, you're the neighborhood leader that I see, so I'm going to call on you, but no pressure. I know you're Fowler Drive, right? Just your sense of like the geography and food access in Athens. Do you have any like gut level instinct reaction to an East Side market, since our current markets are really West and North?
Well, I heard the commissioner talk about trying to establish an East Side market. I think that would be great. The other thing, and this is kind of the conversation that we were having with Concrete Jungle and Campus Kitchen, was just really, how can I say this? People don't take the opportunity to cook like they used to, so they kind of don't know how to. And so sometimes when they get fresh produce, they just know of one way to do it. And, you know, and unfortunately, you know, that gets kind of stale for some people. And then some stuff they may receive, they have no idea, you know, how to prepare it or what to do with it. So we were talking about recipe cards and that kind of stuff. And, you know, Jenny and Andy has actually been working on that, which is really great. They already had some stuff to just kind of time with the produce that they were giving out. So I think with the marketplaces, you know, just making sure that you're trying to help people or educate people on not only how to eat healthy, but how to prepare and what to prepare and the different ways it can be prepared. But I think some side markets would definitely be great. I think it will help out. And if you're looking at long term, I think that would be good too, because I mean, of course, you know, eventually the government is going to have to pull back on the assistance when it comes to food. So we got to figure out ways on how we can sustain it on our own.
Great, Patrick, and I just saw your chat. So literally, as you said, you had to go. I asked you a question, so sorry about that.
Okay.
Thank you. Have a good afternoon.
All right, you guys too. Thanks so much for your help.
Thank you. Be safe. And guys, right. I know we're gonna go. I'm gonna go ahead and ask your permission to go 5 minutes over today, just to be sure. We had a lot of important things to update and discuss. Any final announcements or updates for the edification of the group before we sign off?
Athens Eats Together food distribution this Saturday, 9 to 11. And so, you know, every week, you know, it's Athens Eats Together wasn't just random foods. It was working with the food bank to get items kind of like what Patrick was talking about that actually can make meals. And then, you know, with the meals that we serve are actual servings, you know, just heated up food. And then we've also got ready to eat, so RTE packages for walk-ups for some homeless. We served a couple of them on these Saturdays in the last couple of months. But 9 to 11 at Georgia Square Mall. So if y'all will tell anybody that has that last minute mentality that's 9 to 10:30, that'd be great. So, but yeah, this will be the last one.
Love it. Thank you. And Andy, I think you had an update.
Yes.
Oh.
So we're working with the Food Shed program, Josh and I, and we're currently taking applications for community projects to be matched with a course for this fall semester. And those courses can assist with data collection, program, you know, marketing, digital marketing, grant writing, design, and the arts, all sorts of different possible connections. So if you have a project that your group needs assistance with, you can fill out that survey link and provide as much information as you can. And then Josh and I will be working with the Food Shed group to take all those applications and then match them as best we can with a professor who's looking to do a food related project in the fall semester. And so we're trying to get ahead of the game and do as much of the legwork right now as we can to get it as many projects matched for the fall semester.
And I'd just add really quickly with Andy is that the sustainability capstone that was mentioned, sustainability is at that food shed table. So it's a broad survey. Give us as much information as you can. That'll help us make the appropriate connection on campus.
Mm-hmm. And you might have said this, what's the deadline?
Oh, did we discuss that?
We
Josh?
said we'd leave it open for about a month. So I think somewhere around May 15th, we'll get more formal communication out, but we figured this was an important audience to engage first. So you've got some time.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Cameron?
Hi guys, so I'm Cameron with Athens Land Trust. I think a few weeks ago I was on mentioning that we're beginning a program where we're doing a food distribution. We applied for a grant that was really in conjunction with another application, but anyways, it's kind of a standalone grant. It's from the it's a United Natural Food Institute grant, and so we are in the process of executing that. So we have identified 21 families, mostly around the West Broad neighborhood. And we're providing a bag of produce every Saturday. And we just started last Saturday for the next 11 weeks. We contracted with one of our vendors who's a farmer, a local farmer, to provide the food. But we're also putting information in there. So we're creating a newsletter. So each week there's a nutrition highlight on one of the pieces of produce that'll be in the bag, a recipe, nutrition facts. We're also, this week we put information about SNAP, signing up for SNAP, how to contact people to see if you're eligible. And then we're putting other information. We put some information this week about Athens Eats, although I know it's at the end, but we did run across some people that, were asking for some assistance. And so it's good to always direct them to some other programs as well. So just gonna mention, so if you guys have anything you'd want us to include in there, that'd be great. I would be glad to do that. And, we're just kind of just starting. So, we haven't, knocking on the doors. We haven't talked to everyone, but hopefully throughout this process, we'll be kind of getting, building those relationships and getting some feedback. And we'd be glad to, share what we learn from that.
Mm-hmm. That's great, Cameron. You might have mentioned this, but definitely if you're comfortable sharing that SNAP flyer.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, actually Meredith is on here. She's my intern. And we actually talked about that on Saturday. We're like, we need to get that flyer and put it in here. So we did have some information there. We noticed a lot too. A lot of people don't have access to internet. So we really try to use the phone numbers as much as possible. Sometimes just, so we're just trying to make it as easy as possible for people to be able to sign up. So yeah, we're glad to put that in there.
Thank you. Commissioner Myers?
Yeah, I just wanted to let everyone know that the mayor and commissioner are having a special work session this Thursday at 5:30, and the focus is the funding from the American Rescue Plan. I know nothing about that until Thursday, and that's 28. I think the first round is like 28 million that gets to be spent over a long several years. But anyway, I don't know much about it, and that's why I'm going to be at the work session, obviously on Thursday at 5:30. But that's you can watch that on YouTube. So if you want to be following along with that money and what we're learning, that's a place to watch. And of course, you can watch that on YouTube afterwards at your own leisure.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Commissioner. Josh?
Sorry, struggling to hit the unmute button. I just wanted to, Mark did hint at that we will be sending an email digest. We've collected, just through the engagement that I have with nonprofits, a large number of nonprofits. The information will be intended to be spread far and wide. A bunch of faith-based organizations. There will be about a 2-week digest of upcoming meal distributions. It's the most accurate information we have. So we've called recently and have that information. The Athens Eats Together information is still on that. We hope to, in the next iteration, have really drilled down information on food pantries to also be able to include that information as well. But so we'll be starting to put those out on a bi-weekly basis. And if you have suggestions or thoughts, please feel free to share those with us as we keep sharing that information out.
Mm-hmm. And related to the Thursday work session, I know Commissioner Myers has been a supporter of and friend of Envision since it began and in its formative stages. So she's no stranger to the fact that the action agenda exists to convey what are the priorities of this community, what are the most pressing needs based upon data and analyzing that data and resident input and feedback. And I think this group has been meeting for quite some time, and together we've clearly articulated that we need more resources invested in increasing SNAP access, increasing access to fresh food. And we learned through the Athens Eats Together program, we need investments made in the infrastructure to help get food to people, the cost of storage, the cost of transportation. So if there's any opportunity in this to help us know what we know, in other words, we kind of know what the needs are. If there's any way we can work collaboratively to convey that in a constructive and collaborative way, I'm always here and available for that. Mr. Boone, before we sign off, I cannot end an abundance call without checking in on the food bank and how you're doing. Mr. Boone, any updates from you? Oh, you're muted. There you go.
It's kind of business as usual. We're shipping a lot of food. We have our mobile pantry on Chase Street behind Circle K tomorrow afternoon. We're still working close with the farm to family program. I'm not sure how many cases we shipped. I've got 1,300 coming in on Wednesday. This coming Wednesday, and we've probably shipped out 5,000 to 6,000 cases already. For y'all that's not familiar with it, it's coming through the USDA, and it's a box that's got all type of produce. It's got milk, it's got cheese, it's got one type of meat item in it, and it's pretty well packed to go out, and we're shipping them out through all of our mobile pantries. That and is just the other is still a major need for food out through our whole 14 county area.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much.
Hey, Aaron, Mr. Boone, it was great. I stopped by, took somebody through the Clayton location on Friday that had never been there. And you know how it's always so inspirational. And I love seeing your picture on the wall. And also James up there shared with me, this is probably like the 8th time I've gone up there, and I just take people for tours because it's just fascinating. But you guys handled a roughly 30% growth this year, right? From 9 million to about 13 million pounds.
Yeah, we did. We're doing over 1 million. Still, we're doing over 1 million a month right now.
Yeah. Well, kudos on your growth, your expansion, and handling it so well, especially for you stepping back in and covering the local location, man. Good job.
Well, since I was one of the founders 28 years ago, it's kind of like one of my children. Okay. Also, we have some direct store deliveries. I'm not sure y'all home delivers. I mean, we do called a senior brown bag program. We do deliver directly to some of the houses that we've had. We've been doing it for years through the food bank here. We also do it in the mountains, but right now the major part of ours is through mobile pantries where we can go out and take it out to the market in places where people don't have to drive into Athens or into Clayton to pick the product up. So we do our best to get it as close to their house as we can. We can't do house deliveries on everything because of the magnitude of the weight we carry.
So I have a question and an idea, but I'm not going to mention it now because it will add 15 minutes to our already 5 minutes on top of the 5 minutes to this call, but I will follow up with you separately. I'm always happy to have Mr. Boone have the last word on this call. Thank you for your legacy. Thanks for all the good work you guys bring to the table, and mostly for your hearts. Appreciate you.
Food, water, and shelter, right?
That's it. Take care, guys.